What's up folks, welcome to Wasted Space and welcome back to Defiance 2050. And today's video, a little bit like the first I did, is about trying to fill you guys in on some things you might want to know early game, and in today's one, also something you might want to go out and get. So if after watching this you think, I actually fancy giving that a try, this is a free-to-play title so you can just pick it up. There's a link down in the video description, and I've got to give a big shout out to Tryon, thank them for sponsoring this video. And before we get on to unlocking your first prototype weapon, let's talk about character power, because this is going to be relevant. So character power. Character power is obviously the big number you see at the top of your loadout screen. This is an average of everything you've got equipped. So everything you're wearing, your shields, your grenades, your guns, has a power number attached to it. And that number at the top will be an average of all of these put together. So why should we care about this? Well, firstly, that is to some extent a numerical representation of how much damage you're going to do. It isn't quite as linear as that. It's not straight, this power level equals this much damage, but it does give you an indicator of how strong that weapon's going to be. But more importantly, it also gives you an indicator of what loot's going to drop. So at the moment we have a power rating of 363, and that means that anything that drops for me, doesn't matter where I am on the map, it's all going to scale, will be based upon that number there. So something that will drop will be 363 or above. Which isn't that great given that you can see I've got 400 plus items equipped. This pistol is a bit low. And that means that in Defiance there are times where you want to be using weapons that maybe don't quite fit what you want to do. Now in this case it was on for an example, and I can put my Magnum on here, and then the Street Sweeper, and you can see us jump up to 419. And that means that all the loot that now drops will be based on that number instead. A chance of getting better equipment. So do keep an eye out in what's in your bags, don't get too stuck with certain weapons early on because it's just going to improve what loot you get in the long run. But the other thing to talk about with this is enhancing weapons, because there is a downside to enhancing weapons too early on. And that is, if we go and enhance one of these, it doesn't increase, you can see this one's got an enhancement on it, it doesn't increase its power level. It makes the weapon more powerful, but the power level of the weapon stays the same. And that means that early game you can quite quickly outpace stuff that you've upgraded. Now I've got a deadbolt top notch here, I've done a few little bits and bobs to it, but that doesn't change the fact that I've kind of outpaced that weapon already. What this means is, don't be afraid of enhancing stuff, just do take into account that you're going to want to be able to get it off again, because some of these enhancements, some of these mods are pretty damn good. So this one here has got an ammo mod on it, but I'm going to have to now pay to get that ammo mod off, the same Corellium cores that I paid to put it on there. Thankfully in 2050 these Corellium cores are quite easy to get. Almost every mission rewards one, especially as you go later on into the game, and all of the dynamic events frequently reward them. They're quite easy to get hold of. But it's something to take into account, because you want to make sure that you're pushing that power level as high as you can all the time. That's going to give you the best response and the best results when it comes to progressing through. So talking about progression, let's have a quick chat about ego level and what that actually does, because it's not very well explained, and to some extent it does a lot less than you might think. So ego levels, and these are a bit of a weird one, which means this section is likely to be fairly short, and I'm definitely going to tangent hard over to a bit of stuff about Ark keys. You'll see why that's relevant in a moment. But first, let's talk about the fact that you get a big message across your screen that says new ego level unlocked, and you may well be wondering, okay, where do I go and spend my points for that? What's that done to my character? And the answer is, I'm afraid, nothing. The ego levels in this game only do one thing. In Defiance, these things could go up into the thousands, but in 2050 they cap out at 50. And when you get to 50, it gives you access to contracts. So same screen as the goals, just a different button at the top here, and you can see ego level must be 50, and these are daily and weekly missions that different factions will give you, and they reward some quite cool stuff. Not only is this a source of Corellium cores and faction commendations, it's also a source of Ark keys. So as I said, let's talk briefly about Ark keys and why you might actually want these things. So when you complete a major Ark Force, this is one of the big ones with multiple stages to it that build up to a boss fight, at the end there will be an Ark chest, and that's of course what you need these Ark keys for. And these contracts, alongside missions, are basically how you're going to go about getting them. It is possible to buy these from the premium store, but I'm trying to aim these videos purely at what do I do if I don't want to take that route. And contracts is one of your main ways of picking up these keys so you can open those chests up and get yourself a decent bit of loot, basically from every time you go to an Ark Fall with one of these keys. Open that thing up and you will get something leveled up to your level that tends to be a bit better than what would have just dropped from the mission. So far I've been getting blues from the ones I've used, but I'm sure the loot goes higher than that, and that's potentially why you might worry about your ego level. Get access to these contracts. Speaking of arch chests and loots, I've told you about how a lot of these mechanics are working now. I figured let's end on maybe something that, as a new player, you could aim towards as like your first proper goal. So in this case, let's go and talk about getting hold of our first prototype weapon. So prototype weapons are pretty cool. There is one of these weapons, I'm holding the first one you get here, for each of the zones in the game. And if we go through to the goals, you can see that under the zones section, each one of these zones has a whole bunch of exploration achievements, basically for doing side quests and discovering areas. So don't overlook those side quests as you're going around, because they might actually be helping you out more than you think, especially as they do have a habit of taking you through the discover one of these goals just by default by going through all of those quests. Reason you care, of course, is once we've done all of these, including a slightly more tricky one that I'll give you a quick guide to at the end of this, you get down to here and get to unlock this E-Rep Retribution. Now, with prototype weapons, it's worth taking into account the way these function is, like with other loot, when you get them, they will be to your level. But you don't have to worry too much about that, because it is possible to upgrade these weapons. You'll have seen this prototype replicator kicking around. Well, these are the prototypes they're talking about. Each zone has one, and as you can see, for a pretty high expense, you can level this weapon up again, get another version that matches your current level. This does mean that you don't want to dive straight in really early game and think, oh, I'll just grab it immediately, because it may be too expensive to keep leveling up with you, but it is a way of getting your hand on something pretty cool. And as you can see, this is a semi-automatic, like fire-enhanced assault rifle, really quite a funky weapon. So let's talk about how you go about actually getting it. So as I mentioned, you are going to need to go through all of the zone achievements here, and each zone has their own set of achievements, and then at the end each zone has their own prototype weapon. For Mount Tam, which is the first zone you'll be in, we've already covered the fact that you'll want to do a whole bunch of side quests, but there are a few other bits. Firstly, discovering Tranquility Gate. This isn't too hard, I'll just show you where it is on the map here, just in case you missed it. The rest of these are all side missions that you should be able to see anyway, and as long as you follow the progression through that zone, you'll be able to get past all of these. The tricky one is the last one, which is to find these 4 data recorders. These aren't marked on the map, they're just about. So let me quickly show you where you can find these so that you guys can pick up your first prototype weapon if you want. Now, while you can pick up these data recorders as you're going around the quest, it can be pretty tricky just to remember to do so. So I'm going to approach this as if you've completed the whole area and are just travelling around to get these to get to. So we'll just quickly show you where they are in each area and maybe mention quickly how dangerous each area is as well. So in memory of Ara, the first one on the list is at Serenity Academy, which is a pretty hot area that you'll encounter a bit later on in the zone. It tends to be where the mutant swarms show up in the first zone as well. But the recorder you're looking for is out in the open on top of a building right in the middle, and normally you can just charge on in there, avoid all of the mutants, grab it and get the hell back out again. Second one being much easier. This is up the top here near the Moor Gate, near Tranquility Road in Earth Republic. You start up in this area. If you go right up to the end of the road, you will find this blocked off ruined tunnel, and the recorder you're looking for is just on the side here, normally just protected by a few guys. Speaking of which, so the next one you want to find, don't have to do these in order of course, probably don't want to do these in order, is at KTAM Power. KTAM Power just here, inside one of the buildings where you'll be sent for a mission, just on the floor. So don't miss this while you're here, it tends to be a pretty active place as well, and there isn't really a road route down here, but that's the one you want. And don't forget, when you're looking around the map, you can just right click to set your own custom waypoints. So that's, for example, how I got back here, just to show you this one. One more to go. This final one is probably one of the most tricky to find. It's in another hot area, but it's quite easy to get to because it's next to Bloodbath Turnout at Serenity Power, just in the floor of one of the buildings here. And as you can see, this place is pretty busy, but if you go up into the center, find this and head behind, it's down here on the floor. And if you've completed all your side quests, this should be the last thing you need. And there you go, you have received E-Rep Retribution, completed all of those bits, and now I have leveled up to my level, and E-Rep Retribution we can go and try out. Our first prototype weapon. Of course, do remember with these things that you can keep leveling them up alongside your power. So as your character power increases, you get more powerful. You might want to consider holding on to a few Corellium cores, get up to that 50 amount, so that you can actually keep these weapons up and viable. There is one for each area, so you do end up with 6 of these things if you do all of the stuff in the game. So take that into account as well. That's a lot of Corellium cores. But if you really like one of them, it does mean that you can use those cores to keep it up and keep it viable as you progress yourself. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Hope you found that a little bit helpful, or maybe I can just save you a bit of time getting that first prototype weapon, working out where those little spots are to get the data recorders. If you did enjoy this video, please hit me up with a like. It does really help the channel out. If you didn't like the video, obviously dislike button is right next door. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, that little bell next door for more content like this and plenty others. So thanks a lot for watching, folks. I'll catch you for the next one.
Lead the way, sir. We shall follow. You've got an entire posse following you now. Okay. GG, John, you made it 5 feet.
Thumbs out. Hitch a ride.